Hello YouTube, Andrew Fantasia here. Welcome back to another review marathon. It's the beginning of April, so we got another marathon for you. Before we get to that though, please like and subscribe and do all those things. But more importantly, get your cute little butt over to Amazon right now, especially if you're a fantasy fan. And I'll tell you why. It's because I'm a fantasy fan too. So much so that I wrote my own fantasy novels. This is We Were Wizards. It's the fantasy novel series I've been working on for most of my life, and you can get these two self-published novels, We Were Wizards, Seekers of the Stones, and We Were Wizards, Ghosts of Wizards Past, on Amazon right now in hardcover and paperback and ebook. Check it out now. Help support an up-and-coming fantasy author because Brandon Sanderson has enough money. He's fine now. Let's move on. All right, review marathon time. If this is your first review marathon, here are how the rules work. Every 3 months, I watch as many movies as possible that I've never seen before. But the rule is they have to be at least 1 year old or older by the time I see them. Now, normally I plow through a lot of these, but this time, this is actually the smallest review marathon we've ever had. I only got to see, between the months of January and March, 19 movies I'd never seen before. And that's because on top of regular work duties, I also started school. I have gone back to being a university student. So that as just, there's just less time to watch movies, but 19 still ain't bad. So without any other delay, we're going to jump into the review marathon and talk about those 19 movies as fast as possible. Let's go. Bad Ronald. More like good Ronald. Not to say that the character is good. On the contrary, he's very, very naughty. But this made-for-TV film is a ton of fun. What you got here is a bit of a skew on the Norman Bates situation with its own little loopy twists and turns, where an awkward teenage boy accidentally kills someone, so his overprotective mother hides him in the walls of the house so the cops can't find him, and hilarity ensues. In all seriousness, I had such a good time here. P.S. A24 would remake the hell out of this. Blowout. One of these days, Brian De Palma is going to disappoint me, but this ain't that day. Deftly blending conspiracy and murder and noir, Blowout has everything you could ever want in a movie about an ear witness to a crime. Yes, you heard that right. And so did he. The climax of this motion picture involves a shot with fireworks going off that's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. Does anyone else find it smooth and satisfying seeing chunky early 80s analog technology, or is it just me? Broadcast news. Broadcast news is about people who are so obsessed with their jobs that they've forgotten how to be just regular human beings. This makes it simultaneously fascinating, frustrating, and infuriating. The impenetrability of these characters was such that I felt like an unwelcome visitor in an alien world, a world where casual conversation was just a little too clever, and the English they were speaking was far removed from the English I can understand, but it's still 3 superbly acted, emotionally complex characters in an emotionally complex movie. Canadian Bacon. Despite the fact that it came out in the mid-90s, this screwball comedy, one of the final 2 films John Candy ever made, is so flippin' topical in 2025 that it's actually kind of terrifying. In a nutshell, it's about how Canada is viewed through the eyes of ignorant Americans and opportunistic Americans. You'll laugh your ass off, but considering the era we currently live in, you'll also tug awkwardly at your collar and wonder if you haven't accidentally been watching Fox News the whole time. The Day of the Jackal. Nobody does political thrillers quite like Europe does political thrillers, though I'm sure the ones Antarctica makes are very nice too. I'm so used to movies where the underground rebels trying to take out a military leader are the good guys, so it took me a bit before I clued into the fact that I am not supposed to be rooting for this jackal fellow. A cold, emotionless contract killer is tasked with assassinating Charles de Gaulle, and the bad guy from Moonraker is the only detective in France capable of stopping him, and mon Dieu, I love this. Fruitvale Station. Sometimes ignorance really is bliss. Case in point, I didn't know the details of the true story Fruitvale Station is based off of. So the whole time I'm sitting there experiencing a story that bubbles and boils with a ton of underlying tension, and I had no idea exactly what it was building towards, which I think is the ideal way to see this movie. So when you go into Fruitvale Station, and you should because it's fantastic, be sure to go in blind. You'll thank me later. Kojak, the Belarus File. I know what you're thinking, and the answer is yes, I am depressed that I finished all of Kojak, so I'm going through all of his made-for-TV sequel movies now to fill the bald-headed, lollipop-sucking Greek void left in my heart. And The Belarus File is awesome. Classic 70s-style political thrills, even though it was told a decade later, Max von Sydow aplenty, and the type of melancholy ending that Kojak does so well. Miller's Girl. You can watch my Fanny Awards to hear more about how I feel about this, but I heard the words thriller, Martin Freeman, and Jenna Ortega, and I thought that sounded like the recipe for a tall, cool glass of delicious lemonade. But despite the fact that the main character's name is Cairo Sweet, yeah, that's actually what they called her, this lemonade ain't nothing but sour. Miller's Girl plays out like awful fanfiction. Ortega smolders around her southern Gothic mansion, smoking cigarettes and saying things like, "Heartbreak tastes like cemetery dirt." And every single character has a pretentious as F comeback for everything. By the end of the movie, my eyes were starting to hurt because I was rolling them so much. New Jack City. A neat little time capsule of Harlem gang warfare in the early 90s. We all know what the Bloods and Crips were up to during those times, so it's nice to see the East Coast get some love too. Ice-T and Chris Rock give some really good performances, with Rock absolutely crushing it in the role of a down-on-his-luck addict who just keeps making all the wrong choices. Also, Wesley Snipes is pretty much a Batman villain in this. Patriot Games. Here's my beef with Tom Clancy. I can't help but be a little wary of anybody who is this in love with the American military. So Clancy stories have a ceiling that I can't quite move past. Having said that, I felt the same way about Patriot Games that I did about Clear and Present Danger. It's a totally serviceable but also very mid-action thriller saved by Harrison Ford's particular flavor of charisma. And that's about it. The Quatermass Experiment. Based on an old TV serial, The Quatermass Experiment is a really by-the-numbers 50s romp about an alien life form that makes it to Earth and then starts causing mayhem. The titular character is what sets this apart. He's this unreadable cipher, an uncomfortably stoic man who seems part scientist, part private eye, part government agent. I don't know what the hell Quatermass is supposed to be. We learn less about him than we do about the alien. But at the end of the day, this is a movie where people call Scotland Yard, and I love it whenever anyone in a movie says they're going to call Scotland Yard. The Rocketeer. According to Letterboxd, I was about to reach my 2000th motion picture, so I wanted it to be something special. Now, for those who don't know, I keep a watch list of all the films I want to see, and I'm not kidding when I say this. The Rocketeer is the very first movie I've ever put on my watch list. Way back when I was 4 years old. Ever since June 1991, I've been telling myself, I want to see The Rocketeer. Well, on March 9th, 2025, I finally got around to it. Was it worth the 34-year wait? Hell yeah, are you kidding? It's a World War II-era swashbuckling adventure about jetpacks that features a 7-foot-tall gangster in square-jawed Dick Tracy-style prosthetic makeup. This thing was made for me. Supergirl. Helen Slater looks a lot like the comic book character, and Brenda Vaccaro is a lot of fun. Those are the only two good things I have to say about Supergirl. This motion picture did more harm to the Girl of Steel than Lex Luthor or Darkseid ever could. The stakes are high, but the movie decides to meander and have Kara while away the runtime fighting bulldozers, riding bumper cars with a cute boy, and posing in front of a startling amount of Popeye's chicken product placements. Also, the villain is a lady who lives in an abandoned amusement park ride and wants to be a sorceress or something. Jesus, saying that out loud was so much worse than I thought it was going to be. 3 Days of the Condor. Much like Kojak the Belarus File, 3 Days of the Condor is also a New York set political thriller with Max von Sydow aplenty and a melancholy ending. It also features a charismatic lead, tons of murder, and frightening government conspiracies. The biggest difference is that 3 Days of the Condor felt like one of those movies that desperately shoehorns in a love story last minute because its two leads are hot. Everything about this Redford Dunaway romance felt laughable. Other than that, yeah, it's groovy. Time Cop. Oh boy, I forgot how much fun it can be spending time with Jean-Claude Van Damme. Back in 2007, Wizard magazine actually published one of my fan letters, and freelance writer Chris Ward recommended Time Cop to me. Sorry it took me almost 20 years to follow up on that, Chris. Time Cop isn't without its flaws. They somehow managed to make a time travel plot boring, but it does bring up the excellent and oft overlooked point. If time travel existed, it would immediately be scooped up by the worst possible people for the greediest possible bullshit. This movie is about stocks and campaign funding, so those are the kinds of villains we're dealing with here. But Chris Ward was right about one thing. Van Damme can do the splits like nobody else can do the splits. Tusk. It's pretty remarkable how something that started off as a joke on a podcast ended up becoming a surprisingly poignant and often very funny horror comedy that works. Like the gag-inducing skin suit designed by its main antagonist, Tusk may be stitched together a bit haphazardly, but it's got a lot of layers and has some genuine care put into it. Watch it back-to-back with Barbarian for a mini-film festival I like to call Justin Long playing assholes who get their comeuppance. The Unseen. Right off the top, major spoilers ahead, so mute this if you really don't want to know anything about The Unseen. This film is about incest. And let's just say you're going to feel really uncomfortable by the end once you see an actor who does not fall under a certain medical category portraying a caricature of a character who does. Oh boy. Collar tugging aside, it's a perfectly serviceable, creepy slasher with some decent writing, and at the end of the day, the right person is portrayed as the villain, so there's that. Woman of the Hour. I don't know what it was about the 1970s that just made so many serial killers come crawling out from whatever rocks they lived beneath, but submitted here for the approval of the Midnight Society is yet another of them. In this crazy but true story, a young up-and-coming actress books a gig on The Dating Game, and one of the eligible bachelors just happens to be yet-to-be-caught serial killer Rodney Alcala. Yikes. Superbly filmed with an excellent directorial debut from Anna Kendrick, this hit all the right notes and managed the rare achievement of making a true story end on something other than an anticlimax. Working Girl. Yay, Wall Street people! The most fun kind of people there is! That's sarcasm, kids. Still, it's hard not to have fun when you've got Sigourney Weaver, Harrison Ford, and Melanie Griffith strutting through the financial district, playing the kinds of manipulative games that would make George R.R. Martin blush. Yes, Working Girl is a snapshot from a time when getting a corner office on Wall Street was considered a god-tier achievement, and it puts that goal on a marble gold-trimmed pedestal, but it's got enough of a charm to it that you can just turn your brain off for a bit and enjoy it as a screwy romantic comedy. And that'll do it for today's review marathon. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I hope you saw something in there that you might be interested in watching for yourself. Until next time, my friends, adios.